I've got a bit of a cold. I've got a bit of a cold, so I sound a little bit like a frog this morning. Uh, so welcome. I wanted to relay this information. I think will be very valuable for folks looking at a couple of different versions of what's going on with cloud computing.
Rob, I think we lost you.
Sorry about that. Am I back? Do you have me now?
Yes, loud and
Yeah.
clear.
All right. So I'll reintroduce myself real quick. I'm a senior security engineer for the Security and Policy Group, Division of Information Technology, and we are very happy to help anyone on campus should they need to do assessments of whether or not cloud computing will meet their needs one way or another, security-wise or otherwise. Can we hit the next slide, please? All right, so here's the university policy on cloud computing, by which I mean, no, we don't really have one, but the inclination at first blush is to say no. There are a number of reasons to be concerned about cloud computing, and one of the reasons for that, there are a lot of security implications. There are business needs the university has in terms of needing to maintain control of its own data. Additionally, there is the very real requirement in some grants and some other partnership work that gets done that you know where your data lives and that it not leave the United States. So we're going to talk a little bit about where that might come up. We don't officially support any of these applications. That could change in the future. We certainly have, at this point, outsourced the student email process to Google, with, so that our students are using Gmail, basically branded and looking like University of Maryland now. Connected to Gmail very easily is the Google Apps suite, and we could as well have access to that, and that's simply a matter of turning those features on and saying, go ahead and use them. There's been some reluctance there. Google and their applications have some issues with accessibility. They don't all make the proper allowances required under law for folks that have variety of disabilities to be able to continue to use them. So we haven't gone down that road just yet. That doesn't mean to say that you will in any way you're not really running afoul of the policy today if you are using these applications. So, with any of these applications, you need, with any application really, you need to vet this particular application for suitability to the work you're looking to do. Can I have the next slide? There is there's a big difference between working in the cloud and working locally on your laptop, desktop, local server, whatever. Connectivity becomes critical. Some of these applications will allow you to cache locally, will allow you to run in an offline mode, but it's relatively uncommon. To get the same level of functionality. That's not really how they're designed. They're designed with the idea that you are always connected, and so you will just connect and do your work. That said, there are a lot of positives that go with these things. The Google Apps specifically are very collaborative in nature. They allow, for instance, a number of students to work on the same document at the same time, provide that kind of work. Google kind of sort of tried that with that Wave product they had out for a while. That's been discontinued, but they do have a lot of those features built into their applications. Whether you're looking at a document or a spreadsheet, you can even presentations. You can collaboratively develop this within a small group. So we're going to talk about specifically cloud applications and then cloud storage. Lauren, can you get me to the cloud slide? You're going to go. Here you go. So this is basically my explanation of what the cloud is, because of course it's sort of a nebulous term that gets thrown around far too often today. Basically, in developing network diagrams, this is what a basic network diagram would look like for a network engineer or a security person or anything like that. You have a lot of detail on the interior of the network. You have some arbitrary boundary, often your edge router or your firewall or some device that separates you from everything else. And basically the cloud is everything else. Just comes from a convention in drawing the diagrams from a long time ago. So that said, cloud applications are applications that you're not running the code locally on your machine. Now, of course, you're running it inside a browser, and you are running something locally on your machine. But most of the processing is happening on a remote server someplace that you are connected to through the internet. There's even the notion of the personal cloud, where you have this server that does all the processing for you, but maybe that server's inside that boundary. That's a slightly grayer area, just for nomenclature purposes. Cloud storage is, of course, where you are storing files of some sort up there on someone else's server out in the world. The idea behind these is that those are accessible from wherever you go. So whether it be sitting at work on your desktop, or at home, or on travel on your laptop, or maybe your iPad, or even your phone, you can get to your data or the application that you were using to craft a new document or a spreadsheet or something like that. Gmail is actually a great example of a cloud-based application. It certainly wasn't the first of its sort, but the idea is that your mail lives on a server someplace. And to most people, that's kind of what it does. You can download it to your local hard drive, but we're used to the idea that mail lives up on a server. Google basically took away the local client and said, well, okay, so your client, for looking at your email, also going to live out on another server. You're just going to look at it through your web browser. And the browser is the window through which you access very nearly all of these cloud services. So there you run into issues of, well, does this browser work with this particular cloud product? For the most part, there's a lot of compatibility across browsers. If you're using Chrome or if you're using Firefox, you're going to see very few problems, even on OS X. Safari is, for the most part, also very, very reliable as far as that goes. Can we go ahead to the next slide there? So I've given you this list, and I can send it out as well, because I'm going to run through a number of items here, and I'm going to try to share my screen here in a second. And I want to make sure that you're able to go back and grab these items and have a look at them. Okay, I think I have enabled sharing. We'll see if this works. Can you see the Google Apps box window now? There, you still seeing the black window? Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to run through a few of these items really quickly. You're going to see Google Apps is, again, the one that is very commonly seen. There is the free version that the individual can use. It provides, of course, calendaring, website hosting, and Gmail, as many people are familiar with, as well as Google Docs that allows you to create word processing documents.
I don't see anything.
Okay, you're seeing it now, or no?
No, I'm sorry.
Whoever can't see it, if you can just type into the chat pod, and then I can work with you while Rob keeps going ahead. Okay? Thanks.
Okay. So again, Google Apps, great. There is the free version. That's sort of the individual version. As we can see here, there's a limited number of users. There are a few apps. If you have a business account, there are, if you want to pay for that, there are many more features that they can provide, including, as you can see here, some security-related items that are very important. It is also possible within Google to also create an apps account associated with a particular domain. This is ordinarily used for smaller companies that have perhaps their own domain, and they can connect the email, the applications, all of that, tie that all into an association with their, say, thissmallbusiness.com or whatever their domain name is. Google's having a lot of positive traction with this. A lot of work being done here. It's probably the most solid of these offerings. As you can see here, Microsoft also has Office Online. It's office.microsoft.com. These applications are available for use for free at a certain level of use, and then you can purchase a subscription if you're going to use this as your regular tool in lieu of having a local documents here. This is also another place that the Microsoft product turns up. They have a partnership with Facebook, and I'll try to click back and show a little more clarity here. But basically, they have several of these applications, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, that will work as a Facebook application inside of Facebook. Now, it was a little tricky to find, but basically, you create your documents on a web-based interface that looks an awful lot like the Word interface does. We'll see if that's going to finish loading for me. Okay. Well, I'll leave that to you to find yourself. I want to point out another product that's a little bit different, but definitely a cloud product, Evernote. An excellent product for note-taking, for storing small documents that you're looking to have available in multiple locations. I use this from everything from taking notes in a meeting to keeping track of my grocery list to saving photos and little reminders here and there. But it's a fully featured application. You can save, there are tools that are plugins for web browsers if you'd like to save web pages or portions of web pages up into Evernote. Basically a note-taking application, but those notes end up in the cloud on their servers, and you can then access those notes from your desktop, from your phone, from your mobile device. This is a much quicker way to jot down more impromptu notes as opposed to the more perhaps thought-out document production that you might do in Google Apps or in the Office online product. Now, as I'm explaining these, I'm giving you some examples here. I want to talk a little bit about safety and some best practices. One of the things that you're going to want to do is make sure that whatever product you're using is using both an encrypted connection and is encrypting the storage of your material on the back end. Now, this is information that every provider will tell you about. It can be very difficult to locate that information. I'm displaying Evernote's explanation of how they use encryption. And you can see here the details of exactly what types and how strong it is are a little bit beyond what most people will need to understand. That they say that they are both encrypting on the back end and they are encrypting the note in transit. Very important two pieces of information. Also here, you can see that Evernote explains that the user maintains the password connected to encrypted data. Evernote's employees cannot read your stuff. Evernote's employees cannot access your stuff if you lose that password. So the onus of securing that password and making sure that material remains accessible is on the user. The alternative to this, would be a situation where the holder of the data might be able to access your information, which is a less secure scenario, and one that might not be acceptable for particular grants or places where you might have secure data going up into these locations. Along with the basic security of your documents, which is to say the confidentiality, you also need to consider the backup scenario that you're using. It's very important that if you're storing your documents in the cloud, that you also have those documents locally on some machine somewhere. Google, in an effort to allow you to remove your data from Google, not remove, but download your data from Google, has what it calls the Data Liberation Front, which is an organization within Google itself that works with every Google product to make sure that you can get your data back out. As you can see, they have on their page here, users should be able to control the data they store in any of Google's products. Their goal is to make it easier to move it in and out. So, using the tools that Data Liberation Front provides you, you can keep copies of all of your documents from Google, whether it be your email that's in Gmail, whether it be your Google Docs or anything else that's contained within a Google product. You can download it and save local copies of it. It's a very valuable feature. I have not been able to locate the page that Microsoft has for their download facility, but I am aware that they do have the ability for you to also store yours locally. Whatever product you choose to use, you need to make sure that you are doing sufficient backing up with these products. One product I recommend, this is more for social media, although they also have a very valuable Google Apps plan here, is Backupify. They make an effort, they have a product where you can log in and provide them the logins for your material, for your sites, whether it be Google Apps or Twitter or Facebook or any of your accounts. And they will back up that data for you on a regular basis. There's a certain amount of free product that they offer, and then there are reasonably priced plans to download and more, and get finer control over what gets backed up and where. There's also an open source project focusing on the same idea called the Locker Project at lockerproject.org, as you can see here. This is a little more complicated and involved. You can see the prerequisites. You need to have Git and Python up and running. If those things don't ring a bell for you, I'd go back to Backupify, because this is open source, still in its embryonic stage, and a little, it's got a pretty steep learning curve here if this is what you're looking to do. But I do want to point out that if you have Backupify backing up your data, and Google Docs loses your data, then it's at Backupify. Well, what if the problem is not that Google Docs has lost your data, but that you are offline and disconnected for some reason? If you have a local copy of those documents, you can continue to work on them using whatever tools you might have available locally. But it's definitely important to bear this in mind as you move forward with this product. You want to have your data in 3 places at all times to ensure the continuity. You want to make sure that you have the working copy that you have. You want to have a backup on-site so that it is quickly recoverable. You want to have a backup off-site so that it is safe, because if you have all your backups sitting next to your computer gets stolen, well then, there you go. So that's about what I wanted to point out with the application. I will say that one of the advantages to these applications is the ability, and I've used this with some students, to have a group of students share documents among themselves. It allows more than one person to edit the document at one time, and it can facilitate teamwork where everybody being in a room is not a possibility on a regular basis. So there's definitely a lot of value to that. Now, the other thing, though, the other topic that we wanted to cover was cloud storage. This is also becoming more and more popular as Apple drives the MacBook Air, and we all have iPads and we have phones that have fairly limited amounts of storage associated with them. You can get a 64 gig iPad. With the new MacBook Airs, they're using flash storage only, or SSD hard drives, so they're not very large. I'm sort of old school. I have a terabyte drive on my laptop, and I'm used to having that much storage locally, but the move is definitely to put your stuff up in the cloud someplace that's accessible when you're online. So in an effort to do that, another product that I'd highlight here, Dropbox is the one that I think got the earliest start and is very, very well known. Dropbox has a great product. It's very effective. They've had a few security issues, but for the most part, they're fairly solid. I will point out that Dropbox encrypts your things on the back end, but they hold the keys. So if for some reason a law enforcement agency or a government or whatever goes to Dropbox and says, we need this data from this user, they can provide it. That may or may not be a concern. If you want to protect the confidentiality of your data in Dropbox, you're going to need to encrypt it yourself before placing it in Dropbox. Now, Dropbox is unique in that what it does is it syncs a local folder on your hard drive to its cloud folder, making sure that things are identical in both places. They have an excellent facility for sharing those documents with other Dropbox users, you can start off with a 2 gigabyte free account, and you can gain a great deal of storage by inviting other users and having them join. There's a special education-related bump that they'll give you if you indicate, if you connect with or if you associate your umd.edu email address with your Dropbox, you can get a bump up in storage, even if you are not using it as the primary address to connect to Dropbox. Again, Dropbox allows access to the data once it's in the cloud from a variety of applications and devices. Now, what's really fantastic about Dropbox is they have an API that's apparently very easy to code to. If you have an iDevice or an Android phone and you're using, let's say your iPad or whatever, a number of applications, I mean a really large number of applications, make use of Dropbox as a way to share data back and forth. If you have an iPad and you have had PDFs that you wanted to move to your iPad to read before, certainly you can email them to yourself. You can also use the facility where your iPad is plugged in and sync it over to the appropriate application. However, I have gotten into the habit of using my Dropbox as a place to stick that. I've got 2 or 3 different applications, Notability, Goodreader, who will both tap into my Dropbox after I give it the credentials and pull those applications down, allow me to read them, annotate them if I wish, put them back up into the Dropbox, and it keeps all of that synchronized on all the places where I have Dropbox run. So it's a great application for that purpose. And yes, I did see your note, and I will talk about encryption in just a minute. Box.net, or now it's Box.com, they've upgraded their domain, is a direct competitor to Dropbox. They provide a larger free space than Dropbox does. They're a very solid product as well. I would say they are a little bit behind in terms of getting other applications to integrate with Box.net, but they are making headway in that direction. Again, it's a very similar service. You have a local folder that you can synchronize with the cloud version of your storage, so you can keep the data in both locations, and you can access it from any device. Microsoft Live's SkyDrive also comes with a great deal of free storage. If you see, you get 25 gigabytes free, and you can sign up. And obviously, with any of these, if you purchase a premium service, you can get a great deal more storage. So SkyDrive has one advantage in that with Windows 7, they have plans, although I don't believe they have it working just yet, to integrate it so that you can mount your SkyDrive as a drive inside of Windows, which would be a benefit if you're a Windows user, but I believe that's still on the plan for sometime later this summer. You can also see here on SkyDrive, up here, where if you can see my mouse, there's a facility where you can create a Word document, an Excel spreadsheet, a PowerPoint, or it's like a note from OneNote directly into SkyDrive using their web-based application product. SugarSync is another product that allows you to sync files across multiple devices, computers. Basically, you're going to save it locally and then propagate those changes up to the cloud and then out to your other devices. I do want to talk a little bit about encryption. I don't have any slides here right now for this, but let me go over it very quickly. I have tested a number of locations where we placed encrypted files on these services. Specifically, some tools that you can use, TrueCrypt, can very easily create an encrypted container, whether it be in the form of a single file that is mounted, decrypted and used as a file, saved back out and re-encrypted, or if it is a container much like a disk image that you would decrypt, mount, and have a full file system mounted inside that disk image. and then when you disconnect, it goes back to being simply a big encrypted file. TrueCrypt is an open source product. It is free to use. It is also very reliable for the most part. It will run on Linux, Windows, OS X. In addition to TrueCrypt, Windows and OS X both have built-in facilities. In Windows, it's called the encrypted file system. In OS X, you can create an encrypted file image called drawing a blank, but on a particular name. But EFS, very reliable. The OS X also reliable. You create basically an encrypted DMG. You can then store that DMG on these cloud services and then mount them remotely. This is, again, a very effective way to safely store your data out there in the cloud, regardless of what the back-end encryption looks like. TrueCrypt is the name. It's TrueCrypt. And it should be in the browser there now. Okay, so in addition to this variety of tools, of storage examples, there's one other one that might be of interest, specifically to users who are a little concerned, who would like to have their data available on the internet through some sort of interface, whether it be web-based or otherwise, but are concerned about placing their data at a remote location. As I said, these various storage locations, you can talk to the provider. Sometimes they have it easily available. Sometimes you have to query them specifically to ask, where are your data centers? Where will my data be stored? If you have a grant or other government work that specifically says that the data must remain in the United States, that could be a problem. Most of the ones that I've mentioned here have at least one server, say in Canada or some other jurisdiction. That can provide some legal headaches if that's a problem. However, in the event that becomes a problem, there is a product called PogoPlug. PogoPlug is not the most robust of solutions, but it is slightly simpler than building a full-size server to serve up your material publicly or on the cloud. Basically, it is a small wall-wart-sized computer, very small, would fit in the palm of your hand, plugs right into the wall. You plug your USB connected storage directly into the PogoPlug, and then via their web-based interface, you can share that data to yourself and your other devices over the internet. So you can go to pogoplug.com and find out. You see they also now offer a hosting solution as well, offering 5 gig. Now, with the PogoPlug, they have encrypted transit. You have a username and a password. All of your data stays wherever you place that PogoPlug. So it could be in your basement, it could be in your office. The data is either encrypted or not, depending on what you put on the disk, as it does with these other locations. So that is the quick overview that I wanted to give of this stuff. I do want to mention, along the lines of Dropbox and Box.net and all of those, Google is also expected to announce their G Drive product, or whatever name they end up giving it, in the coming weeks. They currently have a music service, photos. They have Google Music, where you can store your music and download it. They have a photo product with Picasa, where you can store your photos and download them. And they're rumored to be working on a very large consolidation of all that into one large storage product online. So you can look for that coming in the near future as well. So let me ask, does anybody have any specific questions or other areas you'd like me to address here? Because this is a very large area, and I understand that there's a lot of detail that could be covered here, and perhaps I did something that's particularly of interest to somebody that. I would like to mention one product here that may be of value to some of these. It is called If This Then That. The website is ifttt.com. This is basically there's a very simple structure. This is a web service that allows you to say, for instance, an example would be, it would be easier to give you an example. So basically, by providing it the appropriate account information, you could say, for instance, is the first example here, when my Facebook profile picture changes, take that picture and update my Twitter profile as well, and have this running in the background so that it would check these things and sort that out for you. Once you put this in place, it would just do it automatically, and you could forget about having to work on that as well. You can see they have a number of, they're called recipes by that company here. You can make use of other people's recipes like this, or you can build your own, and they support a great number of services. So I have a question here about whether users can work simultaneously on a document in Dropbox the way you can in Google Docs. I'm going to suggest no, because Dropbox functions as a traditional file system does. When I'm working on a Dropbox document locally, I'm working on the local copy. When I close that document, Dropbox, my local application, notes that I've made a change to it, and it uploads the Delta to the cloud and changes the file there. So even if you were to use the web application to access the file directly on the cloud, you're going to experience a scenario where it's going to download the file, allow you to edit it, and then upload it back. That's a little bit different from the way Google Docs works, where you are actually both in the document at the same time. PogoPlug, question being whether PogoPlug is a competitor to Dropbox. It does something a little bit different. The PogoPlug is what's called the personal cloud, the fuzzy gray area. You're going to take this small computer that you get for about $100, and you're going to plug your hard drive into it. You're going to buy an external drive or something, connect it, and it's going to sit over there, say, in a table in the corner of your office. PogoPlug's service will connect that little computer hosting your storage there to their service online so that you can access the contents of that hard drive from anywhere in the world via the internet. Now, it looks like they are also branching out, as we noted before, into a more Dropbox-like service where everything lives in the cloud. But specifically, the product that they are well known for is this tiny little computer that sits in your office and feeds the content of your hard drive out to the internet to you wherever you happen to be. Okay. All right, so that's about what I have for today. If there are no other questions, we can move along.
Rob, it looks like Kim had a question a little bit earlier. She said, what is Cloud Architect?
Okay. I have no idea. Is there a specific
Kim,
product?
can you be a little more specific?
Yeah. I find here an AT&T product. I will say, and let me address this, that when people refer to items, things being in the cloud, it can also, I see your note there, Ken. Okay, well, we can address that as well. But when we speak about the cloud, many people talk about moving entire services into the cloud. For instance, an example would be our outsourcing of student email to Google. That's now a cloud application for us. We've taken what used to be a machine that we ran here in-house and moved it outside of our borders to a service provider. This is nothing terribly new, except that the pace at which these things can be deployed. Amazon has EC2 clusters where you can, even for free, for a very minimal machine or for a fee, spin up servers pre-configured or configured to your need. Rackspace is working in the space. Clearly, AT&T has a product here that is working in that space. Now, Kim mentioned Cloud Architect in terms of a job description for an individual. Certainly, there are important IT personnel issues related to cloud computing. There are those who see most services that a company would offer moving out into the cloud simply so that you don't have to maintain, for instance, Exchange expertise in-house. You can simply buy the Exchange product from a hosted provider. That would be a cloud sourcing of your Exchange infrastructure. So certainly there are going to be people who are going to need to understand how that works, both on the cloud end, where these need to be extremely reliable, extremely available services at a very large scale. You also will have individuals within an organization that are going to need to be able to do the sorts of assessments that we were talking about. Where's my data living? How do my users deal with access, retrieve data from our cloud services when they're here at work and when they're out and back? I think more and more that's going to become an issue because folks are aware of the fact that we need to be well aware of what jurisdiction our data is in and whose rules, whose laws the data that's out there is going to fall under, because there's an increasing divergence between European law and American law on data privacy standards and a variety of things like that, as well as China and some of the other emerging large economies that have radically different rules regarding that stuff from even the American. I mean, it makes the differences between America and Europe seem very small. So you're going to need folks aware of those issues and able to deal with them. Okay, Max, I see that you have software that will allow multiple users to access a particular document in a similar way to Google Documents. You're looking for a service that would allow you to have multiple people access that. I believe something like a Pogo plug would function in that way. You would have to specifically check with a Dropbox or with a Box.net. I'm not aware of any of these that function in that way natively, except with their own applications. So Google Docs can do it with Google Docs application, but you can't use Word. And I think part of the problem here is that you're usually, and what the situation with most applications is that almost every desktop application is going to expect exclusive access to a file while it's functioning, while it's working on that file. So for applications that are designed to work with open files in that way, with multiple clients connected to the same file, you're going to have to check with the individual provider to see if anyone supports that. That's going to be, I'd say, a fairly narrow edge case for most providers, but there may be folks out there who can provide that. I had to guess somebody that would be able to accommodate that, I'd say it might be Google when they go live with their product, but you'd have to contact them. That's for sure. Sure thing. I wish I had more useful information on that for you.
Does anyone have any other questions for Rob?
Okay, great. Well, I want to thank you all for coming out and listening to me croak on here for an hour. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to contact me, rmaxwell@umd.edu.
Thanks so much, Rob. This has been very helpful. You've calmed a lot of nerves, I'm sure, with the scariness of uploading things into the cloud. So thanks very much for that. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. This has been recorded, so we will be posting this on our website, otal.umd.edu. And thank you for joining us. We hope you can be back here next week. Our topic is academia.edu and LinkedIn, professional networking for faculty and students. So we hope to see you then, and everyone have a happy Valentine's Day.
Thanks.